Okay, I've got an iPhone 5 SE here for no backlight. Now, I've already had a look at this, and there was a lot of flux kind of in this area, and it looks like somebody has already tried to replace the backlight filter, which is FL11 right here, and as you can see, both pads are missing. Well, it looks like they thought they were going to work on it and then pulled the filter off and realized both pads came and then said, nope, not going to do it. So this one here, I can see kind of the way it's melted. This pad there was no hope for it to begin with, and it looks like this one was actually ripped off. So this one kind of like burned up from the short to ground, which blew the backlight filter, and then this one was just pulled off by whatever tech worked on this. So what I'm going to do is, since this is just a strip of ground right here, it's unimportant. I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way just so there's no chance of creating any kind of a short there. Now, a lot of people might look at this and say, okay, filter's gone, pads are gone, I'll just put a jumper. Filter is just a little wire anyways, it'll be fine. And that could be fine, but if it were to ever need the backlight worked on again, if the backlight filter were to blow again, well, now that's not going to blow, and what it's going to do is kill the diode, which is on the back of the board and a little bit more of a pain to get to. So rather than sacrifice the diode next time, I'm going to put a filter back. But it's going to be a little tricky to do with no pads. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to solder a tiny little wire to the little nub that's left there on the left side. So I've just pulled a couple of little strands of wire out of my copper braid, and just have to tease out a single one. Alright, there we go. Got him. So now I'm going to solder him to the little nub that was left on the left side. So that's the side that goes to the diode on the back of the board and the capacitors that are back there and everything. So that's the one that I want to not have to run a long jumper for around the back of the board. So I'm just going to attach it right to the via here and hope that it stays on there. I need to zoom out just a little bit. Sometimes too much magnification is just as bad as too little. Alright. Get that tinned. And there we go. I've got that attached now. Okay, so I will pick out these other two little guys. I do need another jumper, but these aren't going to be long enough. Let me see if I can pull off a little bit longer piece of copper to use as the other jumper. And this one is going to go to, well, that other via that's missing there would normally go to the connector. So I'll just use a jumper to connect. Oh, that's still too short. But I'll just use a jumper to connect to the connector from the end of the filter. This ought to be long enough. Yeah. So it goes to, the other via there goes to the third pin of the connector. Alright. I need a little bit of flux. There we go. Now that I've got those placed, I want to try and get that flux off of this area without screwing up my jumpers. So that may be easier said than done, but we'll give it a shot. Alright, getting there. Still have some flux residue left. Really like using acetone to clean up my flux because it dries so much faster than alcohol and really lets you, you don't have to stop working. I can see that's looking pretty good. We're close. So what I'm going to do next, and the reason why I want to get all this flux off, is I'm going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy and just stick a filter down there. And then solder these 2 jumpers to both ends of it and then put a little more epoxy on. And that way I still have a filter in line, which will blow before the diode does, if it should ever happen again. So I've just got this like 5-minute epoxy, 2-part epoxy, like from the hardware store. This stuff is great for securing traces because if you have to rework it again in the future, a little bit of heat and it softens right up. But without heating it up, it's super, super solid, and it kind of just encases your jumper and keeps any future screen change techs from screwing it up. We just need like a speck of this stuff to hold this filter in place while I solder the wire to both ends of it. Let's see if... Nope, that's going to be too much. Just try to get like the tiniest little bit. Use my finer tweezers. Shit. Okay, that should work. Where are my backlight filters? There they are. Hope that epoxy hasn't set yet. Come on, get out of there, little guy. Nope, didn't get one. There we go. And you can see how these tweezers are slightly magnetic, which, when you're dealing with components this small, is absolutely maddening. Because they love to just flip around to the back side of your tweezers. That's why I got these more expensive titanium ones that are a different alloy that they're not like pure titanium, but they are not magnetic. All right, that works, and I really need to let that set, so I'm going to stop the recording and start it back up once that epoxy has cured in a few minutes. Okay, this should be, well, it's more or less secured, right? It's not sticking to my magnetic tweezers anymore, so that's good. Okay, so now I just have to connect both of these jumpers to the ends of it, and then I'll put some more epoxy over it, and we'll be done. After I cut another jumper. And everything is so fine. Just to give you an idea of scale, this is a quarter right here, right? So pretty small stuff. There we go. That's a quarter. That's what I'm working with. All right. Get another, tease out another long strand of copper. All right, that should work. So the reason I'm doing it this way is because it seems to me like if I was to just try and solder the wire, the jumpers to each end of that filter, without trying to kind of epoxy it down a little bit, if I was to just do the jumpers and have it loose there, well, I know that the flux and the epoxy I use don't play well together. So, flux on the board will keep the epoxy from being able to really bond to the logic board. So, I've got to clean the flux off, I guess, is the point I'm making there. Like, there's no way around that. I've got to clean the flux completely off before I apply the epoxy, right? So if the filter is soldered to these jumpers and just kind of floating around, then it's going to create areas underneath it, and like it's just going to really trap flux and make it hard to get all the flux off. And then also, it's a lot more massive than the jumpers themselves are. And if you noticed, when, before I cleaned the first time, I made sure to route the jumpers kind of, against things and tuck them away. Like this one's still kind of run over here and tucked away. And that's so that my Q-tip doesn't grab, grab the jumper and rip it off. So if I had the filter free floating and soldered to the jumpers, then there's a really good chance when I went to clean it off with the Q-tip, I would just rip it right off the board, or I wouldn't get all the flux out. And either way is a recipe for disaster. So that's why I'm going about it this way. Secure that filter in place, make sure it's not going to go anywhere, then solder the wires to it. Then I can feel free to be, you know, not rough, but a little rough with the Q-tip, and I know it's not going to rip off. Alright, so I have attached the jumpers to both ends of the filter, and it's like super easy, no skill involved, just go buy yourself an iron and get started. Alright, now I'm cleaning the flux away, and I'm going to go ahead and test it, and then when it tests good, it's going to test good. Then I'm going to go ahead and end the video, and I'll apply the rest of the epoxy later. Don't need it on video. Now this epoxy actually does break down under acetone, so I'm not going to be able to do too much scrubbing on there. But that's also another bonus of the epoxy, is that, you know, if there's any parts that don't pick away with heat when you need to rework, the acetone breaks it down really easily. Alright, so now we have our jumper from the third pin over to the connector side of the filter. And then we have our other jumper running to the via that runs to the back of the board and the diode. So this should definitely work now. Though I don't know how much charge is on this battery, so hopefully I won't have to stop the video again while I charge up the battery. And eventually I'm going to have all the equipment I need to have a nice recording through my microscope, and then also another one either on me or just like a wide angle of my work area. But I'm not quite there yet. I've been investing a little bit here and there, buying the different pieces I need to actually start making good videos that are engaging and easier to understand what I'm really doing here. But it's a little bit at a time. Alright. Let's see. Yes, we got backlight. Look at that. Perfect. Alright. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.